Hi, this is Leslie with Pretty Brook Presents. And today, Pretty Brook presents an interview with Billy Price. He is the co founder of Billy Footwear. My daughter has these. Actually, she has two pair, one for when she has just her regular feet in them, and one for when she has her AFOs on. So I am pleased to talk to him not just about his shoes, though I love them, but also about his story. So he has a very interesting story that he can share with you, and so I hope you are as interested and as inspired as I was when I interviewed him. Take a look.
Hi,
Hi, how are you?
doing good. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you perfectly. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you fine. Let me set up my little
All
video
righty.
here. Here we are.
I'm sorry?
Here we are. This is
Here we
great.
are. You ready?
I
Thank you.
am. You bet.
Thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it. I'll just give you a little bit of background first. I just started doing these YouTube videos in January. And yours was the first one that I did, the very first one, because I
Oh, cool.
excited about the product. In fact, I have here one of the shoes. So I have two pair for my daughter, my 4-year-old daughter. She has a pair when she just has her regular foot in the shoe, and then one when she has her AFOs on.
Okay.
Yeah. They're two different sizes. And so just to kind of give you a little bit of background on that first, and to give the folks who are listening a little bit of background on it. My daughter has Rett syndrome, and she's 4 years old. And the reason why we call it Pretty Brook is because Rett is in the middle of the word pretty.
Oh, yeah. I got it.
And she because of Rett syndrome, she can't walk or talk or purposefully use her hands. And so one of the things that I did on the Rett site was reach out to folks and ask them, well, what do you do about shoes? Because she can't, put her feet in the shoes. What do you do? And someone mentioned Billy Footwear. And I was super excited about it. I started telling, before I even, I ordered it, and before I even got them, I was telling people about it.
That's so good.
It was so amazing. And so not only do I love them, the pre-K teachers, they talk about them all the time. They tell other people about them. And I've had, her caregivers and therapists, they're like, where did you get these shoes? So I feel like I'm an ambassador for you.
That's so good. That's awesome.
Yes,
I mean, I love, yeah. I mean, everything you're saying, I just love so much. I mean, it always warms my heart hearing how we get in front of people. I mean, because our brand story, I mean, it started off as a very, very small idea to kind of overcome a challenge I had myself. And we came up with the concept, and it worked for me. So it was such a special moment that it just had to be shared. And, grind and grind and grind, which is the life of a business owner.
right.
But word of mouth, that power of, you touch one person's heart, and then it goes on and on and on. And it really has truly been just remarkable how far that story stretches. So I just love everything about what you just said.
Oh, well, that's great, because one of the things that I liked, obviously the shoes, I love the shoes, but then I like the story that goes along with it. And I know you could probably tell the story in your sleep right now. So you've said it, but could you just share a little bit more? I know you talked a little bit about it, but just share a little bit about your story and how you got started with this.
Sure. Yeah, no problem at all. So I'm in a wheelchair. I mean, it's not really coming across in the screen right now, but when I was a teenager, I fell out of a 3-story window and broke my neck and my lower back. So it was a spinal cord injury. I guess it still is a spinal cord injury in both locations. And I just became paralyzed from the chest down. and I don't have full hand dexterity. I mean, my fingers can stretch out and whatnot, but I just don't have that dexterity to grip. And
Mm-hmm.
also, like being paralyzed from the chest down, it's like all my limbs. You have to kind of move your limbs with. I have to move my limbs with my arms. So I use a wheelchair and I cruise around. And when that happened, I was a really independent person up to that point. And
Mm-hmm.
really, in just a flash of a second, my world changed. It changed
Mm-hmm.
forever. And there were just a lot of things I used to be able to do that I can no longer do. And putting on shoes
Mm-hmm.
is one of those things.
Right.
So on the market, there really, from what I could tell, there really wasn't a solution that I was looking for. I mean, yes, they had solutions out there that I guess would work, but it just didn't have the fashion attached to it. It was going to make me look
Mm-hmm.
different. And the last thing I wanted to do was look different, because I just
Oh.
had these flashbacks of being on the playground growing up in school that, if a kid's wearing
Mm-hmm.
something different, the kids around that person are going to remind them they're wearing something different. And the last thing I wanted to do was I didn't want to be that person. I mean, I was already kind of grappling with that change. I didn't want to have something that put a big old exclamation on the back end of that sentence.
And I think for me, that is one of the reasons why I love your shoes, because it's not just the ability, the ease of getting into the shoes, but they look nice. I mean,
Yeah.
that's one of the things that, and in talking to you and kind of doing research to talk to you today, one of the things that I was thinking about is how I know that there's this, big market for what's called adaptive wear now. But you have, I saw something about a different kind of concept. I think it's called universal design. Is that right? So can you
That's
tell
exactly right.
me about what you mean by that?
Right. So I mean, so well, there's so many different ways I can go with that, and I could talk for hours about it because it just excites me. And I'm so glad you brought that up. So in
Yeah.
my mind, like an example would be if you and I both went into a coffee shop
Mm-hmm.
to like have whatever, you know,
Yeah.
and I rolled into the front door and you walked into the front door,
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't call that space adaptive. It's a space that works for both of us.
Mm-hmm.
So in my mind, in architecture, I mean, they term that as universal design. So the thought was, you know what? Let's take that same term out of architecture and put it into fashion. Let's create something that works for me, like on the function level, but also has the appeal for anybody on the fashion level. But the other part of it too is everybody loves a convenient shoe. So having that function, it benefits both worlds. The reason we're able to be in Nordstrom is not because we have an adaptive shoe. It's because we have a fashion shoe. We have a convenient shoe. We have a universal design shoe that works for everybody. That's how we got into, I don't know, Kids Foot Locker, got into Macy's, got into Von Maur and Shields in the Midwest. I mean, it's not because we're like, here is an adaptive medical shoe. Here's a cool shoe that has the functionality that works for everybody. I mean, that's the type of thing that a lot of people get excited about. So that's what we tried to do. The funny thing about it was when we first started,
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of pushback. It's just like, what, you can't satisfy both those worlds. You have to either choose
Really?
mainstream or you have to choose the quote, like medical adaptive. And it's like, you know what? We don't agree. Why not?
So
Why not?
what made you realize that? I mean, since you were getting that pushback, what made you realize no, that it doesn't have to be that way? Because it's not. You're right. I mean, what I have been finding, particularly, when you look back, in the last 10, 20 years, people are trying to do things a little bit different now. But when you look back, people were not doing that. It's either this or that. It has to look different, or it has to be this way. What made you even think that this was something that would be something that folks would want?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say because where we're at right now, it's incredible. I mean, it truly is incredible where we're at right now. When we first started, I never would have envisioned. I mean, that would be such a huge dream to be where we're at right now. I mean, I just didn't have really the power to be able to think that big. And I mean, we're still at the very tip of the iceberg. We're growing all the time.
Mm-hmm.
All I knew was I broke my neck at 18. I put my shoes on again independently at 36. It was a very, very special moment. And it was the type of deal that had to be shared. And we wanted to do something, we want to do something big. It wasn't a matter of trying to say, hey, here's something that works for me. If you're just like me, this is the shoe for you. That's not the message we wanted to have. We wanted to have a message to change the game in a big way. And it was a matter of trying to dissolve that line between adaptive and non-adaptive and do something big. But the thing is, here's the other part of it. There's the messaging, there's like the social impact side of it.
Mm-hmm.
But as a business owner, if you're going to be successful, you got to be able to cast that net as big as possible. You need to make sure your audience is as broad as possible to be able to generate sales. So we would have been doing ourselves a severe disservice as a business owner to try to narrow the market. It's like, you know what, we need to go after the whole market. How do we do that? It's like, okay, well, let's take fashion and function and smash it together. Let's see let's see how people respond. And you just tell the story over and over and over, and you get people excited about it. And you have these stories of success. And it truly is amazing how that grassroots movement really does get a lot of traction over some time.
That's really great, because I love the way that you said it, because it's not just the emotional side, which is great, but it's good business sense.
Yeah.
Because I feel as though, with some of the products, they could, like you said, I love the way you put that, smash it together, and it makes sense. It makes sense for the folks who are using it. It makes sense for, and you're right. I haven't just gotten compliments from the disabled community. Other folks are like, "Where'd you get that shoe? That's so cute." It's not. It doesn't have to be limited.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
That's the great thing about it that I really like about it.
Right.
I did want to mention one more thing, and I did want to be mindful of your time, because I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, yeah.
I really, really do.
Well, I'm so happy you reached out. I mean, this is the true. And I remember seeing your first video. I was like, oh my gosh, that is amazing. So to have you reach back out, I mean, this is really special. This is great.
Oh, well,
this
thank
is really good.
you.
So
because the thing is, I want to be able to talk to folks who who can have something to provide to the community, right?
Sure.
And you have a product, and you also have a story. And one of the things we kind of touched on it a little bit about the entrepreneurial side of it. And I know that, pre-pandemic at least, there was the disabled community has rates of unemployment that the non-disabled community. So, and I know you said that you had your accident at the age of 18. So, I mean, you had your whole career ahead of you. How did? I guess what I'm trying to ask is, what kind of you touched on it a little bit, but the barriers, or were there barriers that were specific to disability that you came across? Were there challenges that were specific to that, or were there just the general entrepreneurial challenges? What would you say about that?
Wow. I mean, that's a fantastic question, and it's a big question. I mean, because there's so much that happened between when I first got injured and today. I mean, that was 20 years ago. So after I got hurt, I mean, I was a freshman in college. The first thing was, let's kind of go through the timeline. The first thing was, being in the hospital for 5.5 months. I mean, if I was in the hospital as an inpatient for 5.5 months, it's basically just trying to piece my life back together, both physically and mentally. Trying to figure out what wheelchair would take place your legs, like how to brush your teeth, how to feed yourself, and how to write. I mean, all that stuff changed. How to dress yourself. Just things that you take for granted that are so small that all of a sudden become just big things, because you can't get through it, or you don't have you have to rethink like how you're going to approach a problem. So after getting discharged from the hospital, I actually went back to school. I went back to college. Okay. And I started. My plan was mechanical engineering. That was my plan going into school. Mm-hmm. And I broke my neck 2 weeks into school. So I figured, since I have a 2-week dent into this program, I might as well continue it. And 5 years later, I ended up graduating from college. And then kind of along the way, I had a couple of internships and worked at a summer camp for a couple of years. And then got a job with the Federal Aviation Administration. So I was actually working as a mechanical engineer for the FAA for 16 years. And
Oh,
and along that whole timeline, I skied before I was in a wheelchair. I decided to try that up again and took back the slope, started driving again, started traveling again.
wow.
Met the love of my life. Now we've been married for 5 years, and now we have a young 18-month-old kiddo, and
Congratulations.
watching him just grow up, it's just
Oh,
been really, really special.
oh
Um,
my goodness.
but talking about the entrepreneurship side, I mean, working for the FAA, it was incredible. It was an amazing, amazing job. It allowed me to grow, but I also felt that I had more in me. I felt there was more. I felt I reached my ceiling of my potential in that space.
Ah,
So I bumped into a longtime friend of mine, which his name was Darren Donaldson, and the two of us are now the co-founders of Billy Footwear. And it was
mhm.
just a casual conversation over was having in his house. He was catching up with me, and he was saying what he was working on. And he happened to be working on a shoe project of his own. And when he said that, that's when I
Oh,
said, you know what? I mean, that's the one thing of this whole like being that is me that I've
yeah.
not been able to overcome. And I was like, you know what? I bet if we put a zipper in a shoe, which isn't original, but I bet if we have that go around the toe where the whole upper folds over, I'll bet I could drop my foot in unobstructed, and I might be able to take back that independence. So since he already had the contacts in place, we were able to generate a prototype, and lo and behold, it worked exactly like the way we thought it would. And as I say, the moment was so special, we decided to start a business. But the thing was, you don't just magically start a business and then get to where you are. You know, it's a
Right.
grind. So Darren and I were working our regular jobs, plus like
Mhm.
building up this shoe thing on the side. And as the shoe business continued to grow, it got to the point where we could responsibly start taking money to put food on the table, and we were able to let go of our day job, if you will. So that's when I became 100% entrepreneur. I didn't
Right.
grow up in an entrepreneurial family. My family was very job related. I I didn't know anything about like that type of lifestyle. And now that it's in
Wow.
my blood, uh, it's definitely a part of me for sure.
Exactly. That's exactly why I was so interested in this. I mean, this you just have an amazing story, I think, and one that I feel folks would want to hear, and I want to share with people. So I'm that's why I'm so glad that you said yes. I was so excited that you said that you would talk to me about this because there's so many people who are excited about the product, but also excited about your story.
Oh,
Um,
thanks.
so, I promised you that I wouldn't take too much of your time. So I just wanted to ask you one final thing about.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you would want to say to the community about, I don't know, being an entrepreneur, or being, just a business owner, or anything like that? Is there anything else that you want to talk about?
Oh wow. I mean, that's another big question,
An
which is awesome.
open-ended
And I love that kind of stuff. But I guess I would just say I guess two things, and they're both very much related. Um, when I broke my neck, I mean, when I fell out of that window, like you do a head first fall 3 stories to concrete, that's you crunch the numbers. There's a high probability that you're not going to survive. And for
Oh.
whatever reason, I did, and
Mhm.
it's been a blessing ever since. So I'd like
Mhm.
to believe that I'm living on bonus time. In the last 20 years, it's just been bonus time.
Wow.
So I tried to do as much as I can to try to add value, and that same type of mindset has been carried into our business. So our business is very relationship based, and it really also complements to that grassroots movement. It's like we want to be able to have a relationship with the customer, be able to connect with them like we are right now,
Mhm.
and do our best to add value to whoever's world we're working with. So that's really the big thing. So, but part of that is it's reciprocal, right? So if we help others, and it comes back to us, it's not a transaction. We don't do it because we expect something back. We help others, and then the law of reciprocity comes back, I mean, that's awesome. But
That's
where I'm going with this is I want to open the table at, we're still very much at the top of the iceberg here of this whole journey. So when we first launched, we launched this with kids. Then we expanded into toddler and adults, and now we have wider adult shoes. In the near future, we're going to have wider toddler and kids shoes, which I know a lot of people are excited about.
Yes.
So we get a lot of suggestions and a lot of questions going like for example, when are we going to have a cozy boot in women's sizes? When are we going to have a rain boot or something like that?
Right.
And I just want to say that we hear those suggestions, we hear those requests, and we're excited to move into that space. It's going to take a little bit of time,
Sure.
but we're all in this together, and it's going to be a fun ride, and we'll get there. We will get there. It just takes a little bit of time.
Oh, wow. That's so exciting. And I'm glad that you gave us that little exclusive about where you're going. Exactly. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate this. And we'll continue to watch and see what you do.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Customer for life.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right. Take care. Thank you.
Okay. Yep. See ya.
All right. Bye. All right. You too. So you just heard my interview with Billy Price, who is the co-founder of Billy Footwear. I hope that you obviously like his product as much as I do, but also like his story. And that's really why I was interested in talking to him, and for him to share his story about perseverance and overcoming and all of the things associated with starting a new business, and particularly starting a business while being part of the disability community. Again, if you like this, feel free to share it widely and subscribe. And if you have any thoughts about additional interviews or product reviews or anything else that could be of use and helpful, let me know. Thanks, and I'll see you next time. Just wanted to add one more thing from the Billy Price interview. So, of course, he was amazing. You guys saw that. And he has a wonderful story. But after the fact, he provided a link for you guys specifically, so that if you are interested in the shoes, which I know you will be, they're amazing. Like I've said before, they're great. They work well for my daughter with her AFOs on, and when she doesn't have them. So I have two pair, one black and one gray, and they're super easy to put on. And in fact, I tell everybody about these shoes, and so other people have purchased them as well. And so a lot of people have done that. She has narrow feet, so so it makes it really easy for her. But if you're interested, please click on the link below and take a look at all the different shoes that he has available, and get yourself a pair. All right. Until next time, this is Pretty Brooke Presents. Thanks.